my husband Ben was murdered right in front of me by a man who was stalking me. And this happened in a restaurant that was a gun-free zone. In Tennessee at the time, you were not allowed to bring a permitted gun. In other words, you've got your handgun carry permit. Doesn't matter. You can't bring a legal permitted gun into any restaurant if they also serve alcohol. So the restaurant that we were in served full meals, but they also served alcohol. So I obeyed that law, and I left my permitted firearm that I normally carried for self-defense locked in my vehicle that night. Of course, the man who was stalking me did not have a permit to carry. He brought in a gun illegally into the middle of a gun-free zone, and he proceeded to shoot my husband 7 times in front of myself and everyone in the middle of a busy restaurant. And I will probably wonder for the rest of my life if I could have prevented that. Of course, I'll never know because I was denied a chance. I was stalked and defenseless.
Yeah. And there was a Marine in the room that eventually tackled the guy and prevented him from killing anybody else.
Yeah, I tell you, the police, when they searched the murderer's truck at the crime scene that night, they found 2 more guns, ammunition, a baseball bat, binoculars, gloves, rope, and a knife. Now, that's no medical kit that was in his truck.
Right.
You know, it is absolutely terrifying to think of what his ultimate plan may have been. And if I had not gone to get management to have him removed, I had asked management to remove him. You know, I don't know if that foiled his ultimate plan. I guess I'll never really know.
Yeah. Let's take a step back, because you and your husband ran a karaoke business.
Yes.
And which, of course, exposed you to all sorts of characters and bars, and that's how this guy ended up stalking you. But talk a little bit about the business and the thing that led up to that moment.
So this occurred in Nashville, Tennessee. So I would run karaoke shows in downtown Nashville. Different venues had their own equipment. And sometimes the girls that would run karaoke shows would call and say, you know, I feel kind of sick. I don't really want to work. Or they didn't feel like working. So I would go in and fill in for them. So I would work different shifts. And it turns out I would work a lot of shifts in downtown running shows at night. And my husband, Ben, would always come with me. And at the end of my shift, we would ride home together. This man showed up on the karaoke scene, and you know, at first we thought he was just a tourist because there's tons of tourists that come through there.
Yeah.
But then he started coming in more often, and we figured he must live here. And Ben took it upon himself to introduce him around the room to some of the regulars to try and make him feel welcome.
Yeah.
And he had sent me a social media request. Actually, one night he had given me $100 bill. When you're running karaoke shows, the way that you make money is through tips. Mm-hmm. So at various points throughout the night, I would walk around with my tip jar. And, you know, people would give you $5 here, $1 there, maybe a $20 bill if they were really impatient and they wanted to sing next, you know. You could move their name up the song list. But this man gave me a $100 bill. And at first I thought he had made a horrible mistake. You know, maybe he thought he had grabbed a 10. And he accidentally grabbed 100. So I remember taking it back to him, and I showed it to him. And he just looked at it and looked at me with this look of accomplishment. And I knew it wasn't a mistake. So this sounds silly now, but at the time I thought, obviously he wants to sing a lot tonight. So I did just that. I got him up to sing a lot that night. Mm-hmm. And the next day he had sent me a friend request. And I added him, just like I add the rest of my karaoke customers. It was the way that we retained our customer base.
Yeah.
And he started sending me messages. At first, they were normal, but then they started to progress in a different light. And he started to say things like, you're attractive, blah, blah, blah. Of course, when you work in venues like this, especially in tourism, you get that. Right. Women get that all the time, and we're just gracious, say thank you, go about our job. Well, then it started to progress even more, and he started saying some inappropriate things about my husband, and I ended up having to delete him and block him. Mm-hmm. And then my husband had to ask him to leave me alone, and then he shows up like we hadn't seen him for a solid month. And he shows up at this restaurant where we've never seen him before. It's a good 30, 35-minute drive away from downtown Nashville where he normally went for karaoke. And I just remember thinking, he's stalking me.